We know that this legislation was largely symbolic, but it did pass by a pretty huge margin. What is the Senate hoping to accomplish with this?
Not quite clear, to tell the truth, because it's not binding. This is a sense of the Senate, if you wish. And if we were passed in some fashion, is it passed and then it goes to the House? Of course, it won't be passed because the Democrats are in charge. So what are they really saying, the senators, to President Trump? Hey, look what we've done before. Look at Iraq, right? That's the precedent, whereby President Obama agreed with the Iraqi government to a complete withdrawal of U.S. troops, and then hell broke loose, and that laid the foundations for ISIL to come into Mosul and basically take over in a matter of days 1/3 of Iraq. So say, look what we've done it before. We rashed out, and was a mistake. So let's not do the same thing again in Syria.
However, we have our NATO ally Turkey saying, well, we're stepping up to the plate. We'll finish Daesh off. So is this basically a license for the United States to be in Syria to counter Iran?
Again, not entirely clear what the message is. The message is go slow. Don't rush, which was perhaps also, if we recall, the veiled wording of Secretary Mattis when he resigned. He says, we know we need to have alliances, we need to have friends, we don't rush into things, we have to be deliberate, something to that effect. So at this stage, what are the senators saying? We shouldn't rush out of Syria.
But isn't that what Senator Lindsey Graham essentially went into Trump's office and came out and told Republicans, I've been assured from the president that we're going to do this in a smart way? Why are we seeing legislation on it if that's the case? It looks like some people are also upset, maybe because of what happened just a couple of days ago when the intelligence chiefs testified in front of, this was in a more official fashion, in front of congressional bodies and said ISIL is still a threat. Things are not really going, as well as we think in North Korea. Iran doesn't really represent the kind of threat that it's said by the White House. And President Trump says, oh, these people have to go back to school. They don't know what they're doing. These are his people he appointed, which is really kind of strange, to say the least. And so at this point, it looks like that there is some kind of a pushback of the more kind of establishment conservative Republicans that say, when we go to a place, we got to be circumspect and we don't leave just like that as if it were a picnic. But is anybody surprised by this? This is what Trump ran on during his campaign. He said he was going to be pulling troops out.
And again, the decision, or his intention to get out of Syria, where, quite frankly, this would be my own opinion, I don't understand exactly what the mission is for American troops to stay in Syria, in particular after there is some kind of an arrangement, although not completely finalized, with Turkey, which is the country that would be more directly affected by any changes of the situation right across its own border because of the Kurdish situation, the YPG, and all that. So considering that there is some kind of agreement or some sort of ongoing negotiation with Turkey, this is really not the same thing as Iraq or Afghanistan or other places. Each country is different. And I would say that there is some rationale on the part of the president to say, okay, our main purpose was the fight against ISIL. That has been achieved, maybe not 100%, but substantially, and therefore mission accomplished, we go home. So that's been said before. It's not like it came yesterday, and therefore this rebuke on the part of the Senate looks a bit strange.
Absolutely. And this similarly happened with the legislation for withdrawing the support for the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen. So we've seen this happen before. This is a clear conflict between the president and a lot of establishment Republicans, like you mentioned. But I guess my question is, what do senators really want at this point? Because, again, by staying in Syria, by staying in Afghanistan, we continue these prolonged wars that can go on for at least another decade.
Yes, indeed. Again, this is the voice of the traditional establishment. I mean, some people would say, oh, these are the neocons raising their ugly heads again. Yes, but there is some truth to that, meaning there is a certain attitude which is shared by many in the Washington establishment, that we are the great power. We've got to, determine what happens here and there all over the world. And essentially, in the end, although this may sound a bit simplistic, if we go in a place, we stay there, and we stay there because we are there. And so this is a rationale for allowing things to fester forever. We've been in Afghanistan, I know it's a little different here, but for 18 years almost. What have we accomplished? Unfortunately, not much. And is this a good reason for staying longer, or at some point to cut your losses and you say, you know what, this is really not working very well. The initial plan was not what we thought it would be, and therefore it's time to cut our losses and go, which seems to be the approach of the administration regarding Afghanistan. But regarding Syria, it's in a sense, although Syria is a terrible tragedy, the country itself, with all that is going on, and certainly the American presence is only one piece of the in the chessboard. There is not much that America can accomplish in Syria, and keeping 2,000 plus military advisors doesn't move the needle much one way or the other. The Russians are there, the Iranians are there, Hezbollah is there. Turkey has its own legitimate concerns because of the YPG and all that. Israel has other, concerns of its own, right, for its own security,
big proxy war.
So, what is America going to accomplish by prolonging its presence there? Are we the self-appointed defenders of the Kurds forever? I mean, is that our mission there? So some people would say yes, by the way. I've read a lot of commentary in the last several weeks saying, we have an obligation. The Kurds fought alongside with us against Daesh, and therefore we need to stay there to protect them. Really? This is our mission? Again, with all due respect to the Kurds, who may be, some of them is at least, good people. Some may be, affiliated with PKK and all,
sure,
which is a different story. But again,
not enough of an incentive. And again,
for America Turkey has proven time and again that it can work with the Kurds,
right,
as long as they're not terrorists. I mean, it has worked with the Kurds in northern Iraq with Barzani. There are official relations. There's trade between.
Well, one thing is clear: we're no closer to figuring this out.
Not really,
than the foreign policy advisors in the U.S.
I suspect no. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Paolo von Schirach, thanks for being back with us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.